Hey, what's up? It's Genesis, and today I'm going to be breaking down Gigabyte. I originally made this song about 2 years ago, and yes, it's been 2 years since it was created until it finally got released. But thank you so much, Outsize, for finally letting me release this song after it's been gathering a lot of digital dust in my drives. But without further ado, let's start breaking this down. First of all, though, I need to quickly relocate all these files because it's been 2 years. I'll go over the drums first. For the intro, we have these drums here. It's kind of like a clock kind of sound, but I pretty much used a rim shot from a sample pack that I'm going to release soon called Drum Bombs. I think they're here. Yeah, it is this rim sound over here, but with just a lot of reverb. Same with this other rim knock. It's from a different sample pack. It's this one right here. And for the reverb, I'm using pretty much my own washout rack. I'm already like plugging 2 of my own products, and you can get this rack and other racks that I might mention in this video on my website if you want to. Link will be in the description. Just check it out. This washout rack is pretty much just consisting of low cut, high cut, ping pong delay, and reverb. But in this case, I'm only using the reverb, making it fully wet. And for the this first rim knock, I have a frequency shifter, which gets automated as time goes on. Here are the drums. Pretty much I have another kick from a different sample pack that I'm working on. How many kits am I working on? Called Analog Assets. Right here. It's this kick right here. But I did some crazy EQing to it. Did a bit of a low cut and low boost. Plus a bit of saturation on the entire drum bus. For the clap, I have a clap from one of my older sample packs from Cold Claps 2. It's this one right here. Layered with a different clap, which is that one. And altogether, you know, sounds pretty big. For the hi-hat, I have this one, which is shifted by 40 milliseconds with a delay plugin. And this trick is really useful if you put all your drums in a MIDI track, because you can easily do it in separate tracks in Ableton with this method over here. But I like to use you know, the delay trick instead. And for it to work, you need a delay plugin with no coloration whatsoever, so like no filters, EQs, or saturation, and dry wet all the way at full and feedback at 0, and keep the time mode to milliseconds so you can fine tune it. And by delaying the hi-hat signal, you can create a slightly wonkier groove, make it sound a little bit more drunk. Whereas if you had it straight, it kind of loses its energy in a way. And the way I write my drum MIDI is I usually have a long MIDI clip, and then I take out some parts or repeat some parts, and edit these individual new slices to create these variations. I also have another open hi-hat here, which I believe is also from a sample pack that I'm working on. Yeah, it's in a different dubstep sample pack that I'm working with Imperium. Shout out Imperium. It's also delayed by the same amount, so it can line up with the hi-hat. I also have a ride cymbal here that is also delayed by a furthermore 40 plus the 40 that's also used on the hi-hats, just to make it a little bit more wonky. Without it, it sounds like this. Sounds way too straight. It's got a bit of reverb to give it some room, and I also have these during the breakdown. I reintroduce the original drums from the intro. as well as introduce these new kick and claps, which are also from my Analog Assets sample pack. And I think that's it for the drums. Oh, actually no, we have this one fill here. That's only used once in the entire song. And pretty much you have a frequency shifter that's pitching down the drum hits, plus a long reverb tail, and then after that you have a delay which changes the delay time over time, and you have the dry wet at full percent at repitch mode. And because it's at repitch mode, whenever the delay time changes, it also changes the pitch. So as you increase the delay time, it will slow down, creating this slowdown effect, which is pretty cool. And it only works if you put the delay after the reverb tail, because if you put it beforehand, then it'll just sound like this. Literally nothing. You need that tail for it to work. And of course, the snare samples are also from my drum bomb sample pack. Now we'll finally go to the basses, which is what pretty much you're all waiting for. For the intro, for the basses, we have this. I think this is a resample. Yeah, it's a resample of the drop. So I'll get to the way the drop's made in a few minutes. But, you know, as usual, it's a frequency shifter that rises over time, plus a washout rack that automates over time to open up and have a bit more reverb. I also have this part here, which is pretty much a copy and paste of some of these fills later in the drop, but put in the intro. And of course with a bit of a good old washout rack. I also have the this sub drop, which is a freeze from I think Operator that I made beforehand, and I just reversed it to bring it back up here. Okay, so for this filler before the drop, so the way this is created is that I have a sample, let's say this square angle sample that I have from my Analog Assets pack again, but it is pretty much stretched out to the point where it sounds like whatever this is. But all I do is take a waveform that has interesting waves in it, stretch it out, pitch it up, and using texture mode on Ableton, bring the grain size to like as low as possible. And because of the way the waves are formed, it will create these crazy overtones and rhythms. But essentially what I did for this filler is I took a section of it, looped it fast enough so it creates that kind of glitchy sound. Then I tuned it down with a frequency shifter, and this brings out that high-end pitch that's resulted from the grain size. I bring it down so it's more of an audible tone, OTT to beef it up, vocoder to shape it, and then another frequency shifter to bring it down again, and then another OTT, another frequency shifter. But I'm using this for like a stereo width effect by using the square LFO at a very high rate and at about around a quarter dry wet. EQ to get rid of that low end and tame the high end. Multiband dynamics as a de-esser as well. And then finally signal delay by 80 milliseconds. And this sound is pretty much a sample from a private sample pack that I have from when I was working on my backyard like 4 years ago, just renovating it, getting rid of all the debris and all that stuff, because there used to be like a massive shed that was taking up so much space, but we tore it down, and in the middle of you know, getting rid of it, there's a lot of scrap, and I decided to take the opportunity to sample the scrap before it got removed from the house. And it's, you know, some pretty good samples, not gonna lie, if I can find them right here. If you think I should release these samples, let me know in the comments below, and I'll release this pack. But pretty much just this sample right here. literally just the first section, but because of all the processing beforehand, it just sounds cool already, so I just kept it in there. Now for the main top layer of this bass group, it's this part here. I pretty much use the same technique as I did with the previous filler, but the principle is that you have like an interesting waveform. I have this saw wave, which has steep peaks from 1 to -1 in terms of volume. And because of these peaks, I wanted to take advantage of them and use them as a rhythm generator. So if I take off all these effects, because of how much this is stretched out and pitched up and turned down in grain size, it will sound like this. But normally it will sound like this. And this is what happens when you stretch it out, of course. And from there I used Reduce Ambience, which is a preset from Ableton's multi-band compressor. And I used it as a soft gate. I also used a frequency shifter to bring those ticks down to a more beepy sound. OTT to beef it up. Another frequency shifter. But this time I have an LFO going on just to give it some pitch variation without me having to automate it all the time. The range and the shape change over time because I have them automated over here somewhere. Yeah, there's the LFO amount. There's the shape. I also have the fine-tune change over time for variation. I do a lot of automation just because variation is what makes the track feel alive. After that I have vocoder to shape the sound. And also bring up the formants just to bring it up to a higher pitch, which I can then bring down again. OTT to beef it up one more time. Gate to get rid of that trail that you hear at the end. Erosion to bring back some of the high end that the OTT crushes out. And this Enya Decagon rack is pretty much an Ableton homemade disperser that I made, and this consists of pretty much a lot of EQ3s. And because of the way EQ3s are constructed in Ableton, their crossover frequencies aren't perfect, and there's always like a little bit of phase misalignment, and you can take advantage of that and use them as dispersers. And that's what I pretty much used to create this rack. I then have a vocoder to shape the sound again and to make it sound a little bit watery. I also have this beat repeat, which I use to create a rhythm that pitches down over time. Right here. Also to create some rolls as well. And over here I'm using the pitch decay to bring that pitch down over time. And for the corpus, I use it pretty much as a tonal delay, and the way you get that is you have a corpus at either pipe or tube mode, and then you tune the tune knob down to the key of your song or the key of your bass, and you pitch it down to the 0 or -1 octaves. If you're on pipe mode, you can keep the opening at either 100 or 0%, and because of how low this tuning is, you have to keep the gain down because it can get really loud, and also keep the dry wet up. I also automate the decay to have some push-pull. I have a saturator to beef it up. Introduce some harmonics. And over here, I finally introduced some stereo width with Ozone Imager. It's pretty wide over here. But then I curve the sides so it's not as wide. And I have another Ozone Imager just to check the signal. EQ to, you know, tame it a little bit. Glue compressor, just to catch those peaks a little bit. And signal delay, which I automate over time. Washout, but that's for later segments like around here. And that's pretty much it for the main layer. You also have other layers like this one. And it's pretty much a direct copy of the top layer, but with a few parameters tweaked, and also with the sample itself tweaked. And for the case of rhythms, for the main sound, I can stretch it to create a different rhythm like this. And that's what I pretty much did for the flows of this drop. And for these quintuplet fills as well. And instead of using something like 2 2, 4, 6, or 8 notes for a half bar fill. I used 5, which is hence quintuplet, and it sounds pretty wonky because it's an odd number, and that's pretty cool. That's what I like it. We have this supporting layer, which is pretty much a serum stab that I made, I think a year ago now, or maybe 2 again, but this is from the dubstep sample pack that I'm still working on as well with Imperium, which is right here. All I did was tune it to the key and also get rid of that low end and add some signal delay. And I edit the fades just to give it some decay variation. I also have these zaps that I add every now and then. Nothing too crazy. This one is just some fillers. It's this surge bass here, but with some glitches incorporated by muting a part and then looping that like crazy. I've got a vocoder to shape the sound a little bit more, and EQ to get rid of that low end. And this quintuplet filler with the sub is one of my favorite fills I've ever done in my life. And it's pretty much using the same concept again. This time I have an Oberheim saw square sample, which sounds like this. But of course it's stretched. Got it transposed up by 5, grain size 2. And I made this quintuplet rhythm, of course. I've got an EQ to get rid of that low end, a gate to tighten it up, and a reduce ambience to clean it up a little bit more again, vocoder to shape the sound, and also to give it some resonance by turning down the bandwidth of each band. Frequency shifter to bring it down again. Erosion to bring back some high end. OTT to beef it up. Reduce ambience to reduce some of that tail. EQ. I wanted to bring out that resonance over there. And then I have this parallel chain, I think. Pretty much what I'm doing is that I have the original signal that I want to manipulate with this Enneodecagon rack. And this other chain, what I'm doing is that I have a compressor, but I'm making use of this listen back feature. So I'm using it as a carrier from the sub track itself to this track here. And because I'm using that, I'm able to crunch up that sound without having to use the sub. And then I can manipulate it even more. And then I can finally get rid of that sub. Plus a washout. And the reason for doing it that way is then I can maintain the clean sub here without having to overly distort it. And in terms of the sub itself, I have erosion that turns on and off just to help the flow a little bit. I have a multi-band dynamics to use as a soft gate again. I think I'm using the volume in the clip itself, yeah, to generate those rhythms. And because of the multi-band dynamics, that soft gate will help accentuate that rhythm, which is pretty cool. I then have a saturator to introduce some more harmonics and a signal delay one more time. And the sample itself is, again, a sample from the analog assets. And I'll show you what it normally sounds like. Pretty fat. And then in terms of the vocals, this is a resample from VST Speak, which is right here. But yeah, it's a resample of VST Speaks in Gigabyte. And then I have, you know, this whip-back delay that I'm using as the repitch thing again. Low cut, that's that there. I have this yeah that is frequency shifted down to have some interesting overtones, and an auto pan that puts it slightly left and right just for some stereo interest. On the second drop I have this additional drop that's going on. In terms of effects, I have this little clap reverb tail that I turned down with a lot of frequency shifters, OTT to beef it up again, and EQ to shape that up a little bit more. And then the rest is just you know, good old impacts and stuff. For this one, grain delay is underrated. Pretty much what I have is a glass break sound to make it pitch down over time with a delay. I have grain delay on there, but I have the pitch set to -1. Spray all the way up, which pretty much randomizes the placement of the delay taps. I have the feedback all the way up, so then the pitch will constantly get pitched down. I then have an OTT to bring up the volume, and for this part, I have a sample of chords in glass, but I changed the pitch to +1.2, so it can pitch back up. Pretty cool. Oh, these for the intro and breakdown. This is pretty much a stretched out effect from Analog Assets again, but I have an erosion to introduce some interesting overtones. Frequency shifter to bring it down, and the vocoder is where the magic is. Then do a low cut after that, plus reverb, and that's pretty much that breakdown sound and intro sound as well. Oh yeah, for the variations. It's pretty much the same track, so there's nothing that gets changed in terms of plugin wise, but I have boosted up the volume of the input sound, so you can have some more interesting harmonics going through. That's pretty much it, just increasing the volume and manipulating the samples before the effects themselves can already have like a massive change, and you can take advantage of that without having to do much work. And all these automations are what changes the tone most of the time. Pretty much all the work is automations on the second drop. I think that's the breakdown done already. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe on this channel, on Outsize's channel. And also, if you want to support me, you can do the same on my channel, and you can take a look at my links in the description below. You can check out my website, which is also linked in the description, or you can see the link on the screen over here, because it's pretty easy to type out. And yeah, thank you so much, Outsize, for this amazing opportunity, and stay creative, and see you guys in a bit.